Wa-Kyendo. Welcome, friends. I want to talk about currency and why currency politics should matter to Kenyans. Now, I made this presentation with a colleague of mine, Moses Mushiri, and so here I am rehashing some of the major points we made and also trying to review to just keep myself abreast and to keep us abreast and to go over these issues again, broken down a little bit, shorter videos. So let's go. First of all, why is currency itself important? Like, what is it? Like, where does it come from? So I'm going to follow this from not pure history, but from a conceptual perspective. First, principles. So basically, currency serves three functions. It's a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange. What this means is that currency is used to store value over a long period of time, where other types of goods or commodities are just not as well suited to storing value over a long period of time. Think, for example, of vegetables and foods. They decay very quickly, right? They spoil very quickly, so they're not very good for storing value. Think again of other goods. You could store value in actually other forms, right? That are more solid and that don't depreciate as quickly. They kind of stick around for a while in terms of value. But then that takes us to the next property of currency, right? That's the unit of account. And I should correct myself there, not currency, but money, right? So money also plays a role as a unit of account. So where previously we might have said, okay, anything that's solid that can just remain the same for a really long time as a good store of value, so it counts as money. Well, now we start to drop off some of those goods and some of those commodities, because they don't allow us to measure things against each other in a very standard way. So money plays the role of a unit of account because it allows us to compare, right? Now the final attribute, the role of money, medium of exchange. Now, as a medium of exchange, money allows us to trade, right? Now, how is money different from any other good in allowing us to exchange goods? It's different in this way. If I have a bunch of chickens, someone has pumpkins, and I want maize, but the guy I know only has pumpkins, and the guy I know doesn't want chickens, he wants something else. I'm gonna have to figure out what he wants, figure out who has what I want, and then make sure that there's a coincidence of wants. So maybe if I want maize, so I'll go directly to the guy who has maize and we'll exchange maize for chicken, and I'll ignore this guy with the pumpkins. But now, if the guy with the pumpkins, if I wanted pumpkins and I have chicken, but the guy with the pumpkins doesn't want chicken and he wants maize, but he doesn't know someone who wants maize. Well, if he finds out that person has maize, he's just gonna refuse to take my chickens. So we need a coincidence of wants. So, in sum, currency or money plays a role of a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. In its role as a medium of exchange, currency allows two economic actors to exchange while avoiding what economists call a coincidence of wants. This means that without currency, two people would have to want to exchange the same things in order for them to engage in trade. Currency plays the role of a unit of account by allowing for measurement between and against all that two or more economic actors want to transact. The sheep owner and the pumpkin owner have the difficulty of determining the relative prices of each items. That is, the two must solve the problem of determining how many pumpkins must be exchanged for one sheep, and so on and so forth. So currency solves this problem by allowing items to be compared between each other against a neutral, consistent unit of account. In essence, money behaves like a measuring tape. Money performs its role as a store of value by allowing the value generated by work done to be stored away and consumed at the earner's own pleasure. This role allows food consumption and then the consumption of other wants and needs to be met beyond the limitations of time and space imposed by scarcity. So money is anything accepted as a medium of exchange that performs a role as a store of value and is a unit of account. Currency is anything that is issued widely in some consistent form by some issuer. Legal tender is money that the law requires to be accepted for debt payment. That is, when an exchange occurs, if one party owed another party to the exchange some residual value, compensation made by the borrower in the form of legal tender must be accepted by the lender. Money has its origins in the practice of maintaining some determination of what is owed to whom and in what amounts. Money also has its origin in the storage and vault-keeping services. That is, those who rendered the service of guarding and safekeeping all that their clients deemed valuable would issue a receipt that would allow the tenant to redeem the value owed upon presentation of the receipt. The emergent practice of using these receipts to conduct exchange helps explain the practical use of money. The value of these receipts would be dependent on the assurance by the issuer and custodian of valuable deposits that these valuables could be retrieved at any time, sometimes anywhere, upon presentation of the receipt. You know, for a practical example of just this kind of a thing, refer to the Knights Templar. Now, when Europeans wanted to go to, say, the Jerusalem for pilgrimage, sometimes for crusades, the Knights Templar would offer the service of keeping their valuables, so they didn't have to carry all this gold and other heavy forms of valuable goods across long distances from, say, London or Paris or wherever other town they came from, all the way to the Middle East, all the way to the Levant, all the way to Jerusalem. Instead, they could give their goods to the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar could issue something of a receipt, some sort of note that says, hey, this is from the Knights Templar, this person has deposited this amount with us, and can redeem the same amount wherever they find a Knights Templar, say a bank, their office, their vault, anywhere along the way. So the Knights Templar would have established, alongside, say, maybe their commanderies or something, these stations where you could redeem these receipts. Now, this is just similar to your banks or if you're in Kenya, the M-Pesa kiosk. Now, when the state also requires that taxes are paid in the currency it issues, money can be said to be playing the fiscal acceptance function. That is, people are incentivized to keep money because of the role it plays in meeting obligations to the state. The state itself exists to fulfill the function of providing public goods. The cost-benefit structure for private actors producing public goods, like defense and security, is negative. That is, the provision of public goods by private actors will drive private actors to ruin. As such, the state is created by consensus of the people in order to provide public goods. These public goods must be paid for. The state raises revenues through taxes and debts. In this way, the state places an obligation on its citizens. By issuing currency and granting its status as both legal tender and as a tax settlement function, the state incentivizes citizens to use currency. So money has a price. The price of money is denominated in interest rates and exchange rates. Now, we're at 11 minutes, so perhaps I'll leave it there and leave the next part for the next video. Essentially, we've covered the functions of money, what makes money, and what are the differences between money, currency, and legal tender. Cheers. I've been Emmanuel. Enjoy, friends. Have a good